Hey Adam, hey, look, we got it working. How about that? And so what you can do is chat anything there, any questions that you have as I go through this. There's like a minute delay or something like that. There's like I think it's like a 45-second delay. So you'll type your question and then you'll hear me answer like about 45 seconds later. And the same thing with laughing, which is weird for me because I get to hear you laugh about something a little bit later, so it's a little strange. And so basically, let's just get into it. There's three of us here, so that's great. I'm Mike Gasway. I've been in animation for 20 some years, as you can tell by the gray hair. Thank goodness the lighting is like straight up on me. If not, you would see a lot more gray hair here. But I've done everything in animation. I've done everything from uh, as an animator, as a supervisor, a director. I've been a producer, a writer. I've done just about every part of it. So I've seen everything from working on medical animation to pitching to DreamWorks and Disney and Nickelodeon and that kind of stuff. So I've seen just about every aspect of it. And what I've also been doing now the last 8 years is I've been teaching animation. So I've been with Animation Mentor for about 8 years and just started doing my own thing now with this Animflow. So, because the thing that I noticed is that the one thing that is definitely missing, I think, in all schools is understanding workflow. And what I see is we're understanding the principles. We know basically how to animate. We know all the facts that go into it, but we don't know how to put it together. Not really, not from getting an idea, figuring out who your character is, doing your planning, doing proper blocking, and all the way through until polish. And I've noticed that what I've been doing recently in Animation Mentor and now with my own, with Animflow, is really teaching workflow, and especially this part right here. Because what we'll notice, and what you probably have noticed, is that the computer, and I have to be careful with this because I don't want to say anything too loud for my computer, but it's not a very good animator. It's really good at numbers, it's really good at ones and zeros, but it's not a good animator. And so when we're trying to go from like step mode, say if you do something in step mode, you're like, wow, that looks awesome, that looks so cool, let's put in the splines, I rock, and then what the heck happened there? It's like that, it looks terrible now, it looks nothing like what I had just a minute ago. And that can be frustrating. And a lot of the reasons there's a few reasons for that, but one of the big reasons for that is not doing your breakdowns correctly and not actually figuring out what exactly are breakdowns. How do I get from one key to the next? So what I'm going to go through with this is you're getting kind of a bonus thing because I'm going to talk about anticipations a little bit too. But I'm going to show you first in an abstract way what breakdowns really are and how we as an animator can make them stronger, can make them better. And then I'm going to show you some things in Maya. And I'll show you like the really basic kind of thing, and then I'll show you with the character and how quickly we can make something look really great. Okay, now remember, this first thing is going to be abstract, so it's going to be not like following me to a T or anything like that. So I'm going to be drawing some things, and what I also want to know is when we go through this, if there's any questions, please. It's very important to me that you understand this entire concept, because I honestly think just from this hour and a half that we're going to spend together, if you put this into practice, your animation is going to go up a huge level. All right, and that's what I'm really looking for. I want to make you all better animators. And even if you understand the principles, now we're going to put them together. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is what I like to do is compartmentalize. Because I know that there are so many principles of animation. Really, they say there's 12. I think there's like 30. And what happens once we get our blocking? Once we do our planning and we get our blocking, and then we kind of say, okay, I'm not exactly sure what to do because we get overwhelmed. I know with me is, and you'll see throughout this whole webinar that I'm a shiny object person. I think we all are as animators. You know, like we'll be talking and we'll look around and say, "Hey, what's that? What was I talking about?" You know, so it's easy for us to lose focus, and especially if you're under pressure of making animation look really good, because we don't want to make kind of crappy animation, right? We want it to look the best possible. We want it to make it look like, wow, look what I did. This is so cool. Now give me a job. You know, that's what we really want to do. And sometimes it can be overwhelming because we start thinking of the principles. We start thinking of solid drawing. We start thinking of appeal. We start thinking of texture. We start thinking of anticipation and drag and overlap, and it just becomes too much. So what I've learned to do is compartmentalize it. You know, like when you go through blocking, we're really not thinking about secondary action. We're not thinking about drag. We're not thinking about lip sync. We're only thinking about a solid drawing, a solid pose. Really, that's it. And when you think about that, that makes you, oh, wait a minute. All right, I can do this. I'm just making a cool pose. You know, I'm thinking a little bit of timing, but I'm not thinking of spacing. I'm going to go into that. I'm going to go the difference between the two. So we only feel, or we only focus on just a few things. So what I want to do now is I'm going to really just break the kind of notion that we have to think of so many things. All right, and I'm going to go into it one at a time. All right, so let's go into this abstract way of thinking right here. And I have a table way down here, so I'm not leaving. I'm just going over here. So it's, like I said, very abstract. What I'm doing is I'm going to show how we get from one key to the next. All right. So what we're let's see, here we go. I'm going to tilt it. So we're just going to go from one key to the next. So this, like I said, this is abstract. It can be a ball going down, but really it's an abstract way of thinking. So this is a keyframe to the next keyframe. So you can think of it even as I've got a character in this pose, and then they go into this pose. All right. So this is key. This is key. So I'm going from one key to the next, all right? So I'm keeping it pretty simple, but like I said, abstract, all right? So what happens now, and I want you to think about this whole concept that we're doing as you do this between every two keys. Now, two keys mean that it could be your main, it's after your blocking is done, all right? So we've got blocking done, so there's nothing else that's in there. You might have what I like to call subposes, which I talk about that in a completely other lecture, but essentially that's like if I'm talking and I go, but wait a minute, and see how I went from this key to this key and then back? It's not a transition, it's not a breakdown, and it's not quite a key pose. You know, so I call it a subpose. Now I put it in blocking after my blocking's done. All right, so I have that in there, or even another part of a hold. Okay, so let's just act like our blocking is completely done. All right, so we're at this phase. All right, now if I leave it like this, and I want my computer to do the in-betweens, it's going to look a little bit like this, right? No, actually, I get my rough timing. So when I do my poses, I'll know that maybe this is on frame 8, and then I do another pose maybe at frame 26. You know, so I do it with my rough timing. Like if I'm doing it to an audio file, I'll make sure that I hit at certain times. Now I'm not married to those, but married meaning that they can move if they need to. But I try to stay pretty close to it. You know, so I try to keep these frames pretty accurately with my timing. And so like if I do a playback, I'll see, okay, does that pose hit there? Does it hit there? Does it hit there? Does it hit right after there? Like I might need that. Okay. So I don't kind of do that. And yeah, and if there's 5 frames between them, that's okay. Okay. So I really don't care if it's on frame 1 or frame 22. You know, like where traditional animators, they would keep them on even frames. I don't really care. All right. So with right now, if the computer looks at this, and you can see, I put these little tick marks here. Here is how the computer is going to go from one key to the next. It's very linear. The shortest distance really between 2 points, that's what it does. and very even. So if I put it in linear mode, that's going to be, if you go from stepped into linear, it's going to look exactly like this. Now, the only difference is with spline or like auto tangent, it'll have a slight ease out and then be even and a slight ease in, on both sides. But we don't want this. We don't want even. See how the space between this one and that one's the same as this one and that one is the same as this one and so on? That's even. So if you ever have a question and say, how do I get my animation to look better? Well, don't do this, all right? And I'm going to show you what to do, all right? But this is the way that the computer looks at it. So what we want to do is we want to kind of change that, all right? Now, the first thing, like I said, there's going to be a little bonus here because we're really talking about breakdowns, but I want to talk about one little thing in here, and that is anticipation. Now, what I talk about I actually in the workshop, I spend an entire week on anticipation. And in a nutshell, there's an anticipation before every move. Before every move. The only time that it's not is if your character is in a constant motion. Like if we're running or we're walking, because you don't want to put an anticipation before each step and it look a little weird. However, if my character is here and looks over there, there's going to be an anticipation before he goes over. If I go from here to here, I'm going to have an anticipation here. It's going to be so subtle, but I tell you what it does to your animation is it adds life to it, because what we do in an anticipation is we gather our energy to release it. All right, so if you want to get into the nitty-gritty about it. But the big thing that I want you to know is always put an anticipation there. Just this past week, we did anticipation with my students, and I had someone that said, "Hey, I did everything except these two spots. I didn't think that it was right there." And I said, "Well, think about that. Your character's hand is going like this, and then he points. So if I'm like this and I go like that, well, there's going to be a slight anticipation like that, and maybe even with your body." He added that, and it made a huge difference just by adding a little anticipation. And even if it's something as small as a head turn, just adding that breathes life into it. And the thing which you always want to do is remember, our audience isn't as savvy as us. They don't know what anticipation is. They don't know what breakdowns and overlap and drag. They don't know what that is. But they know if something looks weird. They're not going to be watching it going, "Hey, you see that? There's no anticipation. That sucks. It's terrible." But they're going to look at it. That's what the audience sounds like to me. No. But what they're going to say, something in the back of their head is going to say, "That doesn't look right. Something looks weird. Something's weird there." And it takes them out of the movie. It takes them out of the experience. And you've seen movies when you're taken out like, "Oh, come on, that would never happen." What happens? You're detracted. I guess you're not engaged with the movie anymore. So you're not engaged. You're not engaged with it, and you're kind of observing it again instead of before. We were all right with you. We're going through with the main character, all that kind of stuff. That's what you want. You want to have that your animation to make the audience in there. And one of the things is adding that anticipation. Okay. So now if we go to here, I'm going to draw it a little bit different. And I'm just going to add an anticipation. Now with me, anticipation is pretty easy. And what you'll see, the way that I like to work is, I'm not a smart man, Jenny. And so I like to make things very simple. Anything that becomes too complex, like, "Oh man, I don't want to do that." I don't like to do replication stuff. That's why you'll see a tool that we're going to use in a little bit. And so I like to make things really easy on myself. So for an anticipation, it's very easy. How I come up with my anticipation is I answer one easy question. Where am I going? So if I'm looking here, and I'm going to now look this way, and maybe even look up, so I'm from here, and I go like that, I look to my right and up, really easy. To my anticipation, I go, okay, where am I going? I'm going to the right and I'm going up. So my anticipation is going to be to my left and down. Real simple. If my body rotates a little bit like this, my anticipation is going to be a little bit like that. It's going to rotate the other way. Really easy. You know, like I said, I want to make it very simple for myself. And what I do is I kind of think with anticipations, it all depends on how fast it is. It could be 4 frames, it could be 6 frames, it could be 8, anything like that. You know, like I said, I spend an entire week. I can spend an entire hour and a half talking about anticipation. But see, you get the bonus, all right? So the first thing we want to do is add an anticipation. So if I redraw this now with my 2 keyframes, I'm going to add my anticipation. Now the other thing is, when you're adding this, you also want to make sure we're still adding some creativity to it, right? So if I first did this, if I went, you know, let's go back to this, and if I looked, you know, being stupid me, I would say, okay, I'm going down, so my anticipation has to go up. So I can make it real easy. Make it up. So I go up before I go down. You know, that's all well and good, but we want to add a little bit of creativity to it, all right? We want to make it a little bit different. You know, we want to make our animation a little bit better. You know, we want to, if we're doing that little head turn, maybe we do something with our face and, you know, do something like that. We add our own creativity to it. And so in this instance, I'm going to have it go off to the side just a little bit, all right? So here I go. I have my keyframe, and I'm going to go here, and this is the way the computer would have done it. But now I've added an anticipation. Anticipation, it goes up, but I was creative. Look how creative I am. Look how creative. It's so cool, right? I went off to the left. So I went like that. So now if I just said, hey, you know what? I'm a lazy animator. I don't want to do anything else. I just want to add my anticipation. Look how different this is going to look already. So now, even if I stay here, animation is already going to look better. Because now I went keyframe, moves up here to my anticipation, and now it's still going to be straight from there, but it's going to be a lot better than from here to here. So if I use that head turning example, I'm going to go from here, I'm going to go down, maybe creative, and then straight line right to there. Okay? Still better than if I just go from here to here. Because the audience is going to say, whoa, 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 where's that anticipation? Well, not really, but they're going to think it in their head. All right? So that's the first thing. That's anticipation. Now I want to go into, see, I went through real quick through that. There's the bonus. The bonus is over. Now let's get into breakdowns. Breakdowns are very important. The way that I look at breakdowns are the main in-between. All right? My background, even before animation, was I went to school for architecture. You know, I took like architecture drawing in high school, and then I went to University of Cincinnati, and I went there for 5 years, and then dropped out. You might say 5 years, isn't it 4 years? Well, it's a 6-year program, but I went there for 5 years, and I found animation and had to leave. I just had to. I found my love, found my passion. So I had to leave. But what I like to say with animation is that it's very similar, and especially workflow, is very similar to construction. Think about this. Would you ever try to construct a building without a floor plan? No, no way. You'd never get that thing up. What about if you're going to build a building, could you not put a foundation? Let's just instantly try to put walls up, and actually more than that, let's try to paint the walls before we put them up. That's kind of what you do in animation if you're adding lip sync before you're finished with polish. What did I say? Before you're finished with polish. You're trying to add the icing to the cake that isn't cooked yet. Use a baking analogy. We're going to bake a cake. We got to put the ingredients in right. We got to put those. We got to measure the ingredients right. First, we're going to look at the recipe, planning. Then we're going to mix it all together, blocking. Then we're going to cook it and maybe mold it, maybe blocking plus. And then we're going to polish it. It's like, okay, some of the edges are a little bit wrong here. Now we're going to put the icing on it, secondary action. Nice little, all that kind of stuff, make it look pretty. Lip sync. It's exactly the same kind of thing. All right? So using that construction metaphor, now we're going to fill in the blanks. We've built our foundation, which is doing the blocking. Okay, we've done the floor plan, the planning with our video reference or our sketches. and now we've done our blocking. So now we're going to put up our 2x4s. And so what I like to look at the whole construction is that, like you put up 2x4s first, and then you'll put on the sheetrock, on top of that. Our 2x4s are our breakdowns. Like if you ever walk through like a house, which I love doing this, by the way, walking through a house when it's just 2x4s, so cool. You're like, wow, look, this is going to look so cool here and here and here. That's what our animation would look like if we just have this. Just have our main story or our main blocking, anticipations, and our breakdown. It's pretty cool. You get to see it building. And we do that in Animflow too. You get to see how our shots evolve. And I got to tell you, every single student says, I now understand animation, because I'm taking time. Like when I'm doing my breakdown, when you see, I'm not going to be bothered by all the principles at the same time. All right? And so one of the first ones that I'll look at, like for instance, what are some of the things that we'll be thinking about when we're putting in our pose? Now it's not the same as just a solid drawing, because a breakdown, and in between, is a transition. We're going from a key to a key. And I'm going to show you when I get into Maya, the more work that you put in blocking, the less you put in blocking plus. Because I put my pose, I put everything into my face, I put everything in my hand, I make my neck, I rotate my shoulder, I do everything, even my feet. Now, if I can't see them, I'm not going to animate that. But if I have a full shot with a character, that's one of the things I'd always tell my students when I see my blocking, see that blocking, I'm like, move those feet. Because if you think about it, if you stand up, and if you stand up right now without shoes on, and just go to the side, just stand there, and just kind of move to the side. You can, especially if you don't have shoes on, it's even better. You can feel the weight shift in your feet, and you can feel your feet go like this. Especially if you go really far, this foot is lifting up the ground a little bit, real little. It's another one of those subtle things that the audience isn't going to say, his feet ain't moving. But they're going to say, oh, something's weird. And it's really because his feet ain't moving. So little things like that. So if we make our blocking as solid as possible, we actually do less work in our breakdowns. All right? So now there's a couple of things that we look at. And I say compartmentalize. So we're going to look at a bunch of these things. We're going to look at arcs. We're going to look at spacing. We're going to look at drag and overlap. And we're going to look at something called speeds. Okay, so I'm going to go through all of those. All right. Now the first thing that I want to talk about is arcs. All right, so when we're going through and we're going to do our breakdown, we're thinking of arcs, okay? And in animation, you should all know that arcs are appealing. Nothing in straight lines. We always want to do arcs. That's why, like, even with art, even with some characters, you want to have a little bit of a curve to them. Us as guys, we like the curves too. We like looking at that. We as humans like curves better than just strictly straight lines. Now, straight lines are appealing, but curves are something that, especially in nature, happen. That's what happens. All right, so we're thinking about that in animation too. So if I start thinking about arcs now, let's go back to my abstract. Because right now, if I go and just let my computer do my in-between again, I'm losing a little perspective when I'm trying to lose that right. I've got my keyframe, my other keyframe right here. Keyframe, anticipation. This would be the main breakdown what the computer's going to do. All right. Now my main breakdown, and just for argument's sake, I always, well actually not for argument's sake, for my main breakdown, I always put it halfway in time. Always. 100%. Every single time. All right. So if that means there's 10 frames between my anticipation and my key, this is going to be at frame, if this is frame 10 and this is frame 20, this is frame 15. All the time. Every single time. Remember, I'm stupid. I don't want to have to think, oh, I want to ease out of that, so do I go to this frame or I come up with something that you'll see here in a second that makes spacing really easy. But for now, let's just say that we're going on, oh wait, are you still there? Can you see me though? Oh wait, you're back. Yeah, now you're back. Right? Is everybody else there? I'll wait like 20 seconds or whatever to make sure that we're all here. I can see you. This time lapse is really weird. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going, but hopefully you guys will type here in a second. So for my first breakdown, every single time I do it halfway in time. All right. All right. Good. We're all good. Excellent. So it's always halfway in time. That will save you so much headache, so much trying to figure things out. If you just say, all right, for my first breakdown, it's really simple. All right, here we are, halfway between in time. Okay? So the computer will label that halfway in time right here because it's really, and you can see that it's the right like that, but I need to tilt it. It's really halfway between in distance that the computer does too. Okay, oh, gotcha, okay. And so it's really halfway between in distance. So that makes it pretty even. We're going to talk about that in a second. But the first thing I want to do is arc. Okay, I want to make sure that we have arcs. All right, so let me just draw it out from there and just go like this. So already, so I do this. So now I've got keyframe, anticipation, breakdown as my arc. See, now I've got an arc going. Back to my key. You know, and really right now what I'm looking at is between, I'm going to call this anticipation a keyframe, is really between this keyframe and this one. Right? So this is where we're going to be working right now, from here to here. So now I've made my arc. So now I've made it different. Look at the difference. Look at the difference between this boring computer thing, even, straight, boring, to this. So now I've gotten this. So now if I just let it go by that, just by an arc, okay? It can kind of look a little bit like this. So now since I added that arc, now we're going to look like this. And you can see I got my anticipation. And like I said, I'm only really looking, I mean my keyframe and anticipation, I'm really only looking from here to here. But you can see it's even. But it's an arc. You know? So there we go. So if I wanted to, I could just leave it like that. Already better than that boring thing. So arcs, you're always looking for arcs. Now, for a character, it's a little bit different because we're thinking about arcs for everything. We're thinking about arcs on the head. I always look at the nose right here. Always have that. If I don't have a nose, I try to look right here. If I don't have an eye, I try to think of something here in the face, or normally they're oblong. You know, so normally the head is oblong. So you can kind of see it. Mine's a little round. But normally you can kind of figure that out a little bit. The other thing is the shoulders. Always look at the shoulders like that. The body, which I then think of a point somewhere around here. I can just, you know, and the thing is, the body, there's not that much, but you can still kind of feel it, so you pay attention to it. And then the easiest is the arm. You know, is we can definitely, you know, put a little pin in your wrist, and we know when it's going in an arc. We know if it's going straight and straight, or if it's going in an arc. Right? So you're always going to look at that with every body part. And I'm going to show you this here in a minute too. But abstractly, so we've added arcs. Okay? Now the next thing that I want to do is spacing. One of the things that drives me nuts, and even with animators that have animated for a long time, when they interchange the words timing and spacing, I hear that from teachers, from mentors. I hear it definitely from students. They are two different things. They're very similar, but they're different. And if you can understand this, this is very easy. And like I said, remember, simple. Timing is time. Spacing is space. Pretty hard, right? Timing means it takes 8 frames to do this. I do this in 12 frames. I look from here to here in 6. That's timing. I do it at frame 1 to frame 7, 6 frames. That's timing. Spacing is what happens in between those keys that take 8 frames. I go from here to here in 8 frames. However, I go slow, fast. That's my spacing. So I go here, slow, and then fast. But my timing is still the exact same. So I can have, you know, if you've done spacing charts, here's that spacing chart. Here's that boring, even spacing chart. All right, right there. And so I'm going to kind of draw them like how I would do a spacing chart because they're a little bit smaller. And so if you want to have a very even spacing chart, it would look like this. Spacing chart's very easy. It's basically saying that you're going from one key to the next, and what do all the in-betweens look like? And so from here, I'm saying on this frame to this frame, it goes the same distance, same distance, same distance, same distance. But I changed my spacing just a little bit, and I want it to go slow and then fast. So I use the same amount of keys, same amount of frames, and just do this. Now look what I've done. Check this out. So look, from here to the first frame, it's a little bit of a distance. There, it's a lot of distance. Then it goes there. Now here, I'm right there. If I want to say this is frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, I'm only right here in distance, see, in space. 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3. I'm all the way down here. In space, right? Spacing. If you look, my timing has not changed. It's the exact same. It takes from here 1, 2, 3, 4 frames to get here. From here, 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. Timing's exactly the same. Spacing is different. Okay? And you can see what I did differently is, yeah, this might look in the exact same place, but let's say this is my main breakdown. I'm going to put a circle in. My main breakdown is going to be halfway, right? Remember? I said halfway. So 1, 2, 3. So on this one, now I can see where my main breakdown is going to be. 1, 2. It's going to be up there. You see what I did? I just moved it in space. Same frame. Same frame. This is still going to be on frame 1, 2, 3. Frame 3 is just now up a little bit higher. That's it. That's it. Now, hopefully that's going to blow your mind a little bit because that's very easy when you think about that. We're like, well, wait a minute. Okay, I'm on the exact same frame. I just move it in distance? Because I bet before, and I know that I've done this, is I'll think, okay, if I'm going to have it ease out or if I'm going to have it go really slow at the beginning, I have to do that like on frame 6, where if it were even, it'd probably be on frame 8 because it's halfway. Oh man, it starts driving me crazy. And then I finally said, wait a minute, let's put it on the same frame number. Let's just change the distance because spacing is space. All right, so now let's go and let's change. We had here, remember? Keyframe, anticipation, breakdown. We got a breakdown here. Now I think you can see where we're going to go with this. All right, hopefully. So I got my keyframe. So now here's what I did. I have my keyframe, my anticipation, my breakdown. Look what I did. Same time, it's going to be the same frame as this. And let me actually darken this in so you can see them. These are the keys that I've done. So I got it here. There's that one darkened. Anticipation, there's my breakdown. It was way down there. And now I moved it. Now I moved it up there. So if I still have those arcs, now look what it does. Look at that. Because up here, remember, let's just, to make it simple, like my spacing chart here, I have one frame on each side of it. Well, no, let's do 2 frames on each side. If I've got 2 drawings up here, and I get 2 circles, it'll be like this. So it's the same amount of time on each side, right? Same amount of time, because my breakdown's halfway. So I've got this. I'm going to do something else here. I'm cheating a little bit, but I'm going to show you something. Now look at that. I could have other in-betweens here. I cheated a little bit here because I played with the spacing on this one. But now you can see 1, 2, 1, 2. So now you can see, look at that. If this were even over here, it would still be better. And see, I adjusted this keyframe just a little bit. But now look at the big difference here. Look at that. If I add 2 more in-betweens up here, look how much I added to that shot. I added so much to it just by spacing. And you can see, just by placing that in a different distance, in a different space, I've now made it a lot better. So let's go back to this head turn example, right? So before, I had it here and just went straight to there. Then I added my anticipation. I went here, different, and then straight to there. Now I'm thinking arcs, all right? So here, anticipation, arcs. See the difference there? Again, you can't miss it with my nose. So here, anticipation, arcs. Now let's add speeds. Here, anticipation, slow, fast. Look at that. Because now, before, my main breakdown might have been right here. But because I wanted to play with my speed, because it's at the same time, halfway distant, or halfway time, I'm putting it over here. So I moved from here to here, this distance right here, the same amount of time that it takes for me to go this far, it took for me to go that far. So that means I'm going slow, fast. Look at that, I just added just 2 little things. Arcs and spacing. That's it. The main breakdown in the middle. Yes, it's the middle of time. Yeah, make it really easy. Okay? So when you're going to put that in, and you know what? Let's go right into Maya. Let's go right into Maya so that I can show you this even more. So if I go into Maya, so here we go, something very simple. Here's a ball. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a keyframe right here, frame 1. I'm going to drag ahead to frame 24. And then I'm going to put it way down here. All right, so there we go. From here, frame 1 to 24. Nothing in between. I'm still in step mode. Hey, I love my blocking. My blocking's awesome. All right, so there it goes from here to here. So now, if I'm going to add my first breakdown, I'm at frame 1 and 24, so that's 23 frames. You know, so 11, 12 frames, something like that. So let's just put it right at 11. It's close. You know, I could put it at frame 12 or frame 13. I'm going to put it right at frame 12. All right, so it's just about halfway. Now, when I first started doing this animation, there were no such thing as tools that can help the animator. And it's way back when there were horse-drawn carriages. No, it actually wasn't that bad, but we did have to get our milk delivered. So I'm going to put this halfway, and the first thing that I have to do is I'm going to go into my graph editor, animation, graph editor, see everything, and I'm going to put this all to linear. Say linear. So now there we go. It put it right halfway in distance now. So I say set. So now I have halfway in time, halfway in distance, which is exactly where the computer was going to put it. Okay? Because now I can say I want to move this somewhere else and I want to make an adjustment here. All right? Now I want to show a tool, however, that makes this so much easier. And I don't know if any of you have used this, but oh, what happened there? That should, oh, that's because I'm still in linear. Aha. Still in linear. Let's go back to stepped. And now we're back to our original blocking. All right, back to blocking. Let's go back to frame 12. And I'm going to show you a key called tween machine. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to type that down just in case you guys have never seen that. Tween machine. That is a free tool on the internet, that is fantastic. If you don't use it, you should use it. It's easy to download. Like I said, it's free, easy to download, easy to install. It's got some really great features in here. I wish I had time to go over them all. But let's go through something really basic. Now, what it does is it takes whatever you have selected, and if you can see here, I like to look at this as a seesaw with a pendulum right in the middle, all right, just to make it really easy. What it's going to look at, whatever frame you are on, I am now at frame 12, it is going to set a keyframe. And what it is looking at right now is it's looking at a key on this end of the seesaw, which is frame 1, way over here. And then the other end of the seesaw is the next key, which is 24. So as you can see, the pendulum's right in the middle. So if I click on this, bam, it put it right in the middle, right in the middle. So now, see what I did before where I had to go into linear and then put it in halfway and then set it back to step? It did it all for me with one click of the button. I love it. So that's where that helps a lot. Now here's something that's really cool. So say we want to get into our spacing, right? Yeah, tween key is also what on Animation Mentor, that's their version. So yeah, you can use that as well. I think tween machine is a little bit more robust, but tween key is awesome. It's awesome too. So now, right now, I can play with the arc to get it to this, but I want to do two things. First, I'm going to change my spacing. All right, so I want it to make it look more like this. All right, I'm going to make it more like my spacing chart is like this. Okay, so this is really easy. So tween machine and tween key does the same thing. It does something really cool, and I call it tending. It tends to one key or the other. So remember our seesaw? So right now we're halfway in between. What if we want it to be closer to the previous key? Okay, let's just drag it. Look at that. It's becoming closer, and I can go all the way to 100, and it is that key. I don't know why you would ever do that, but you can say, I want it to be there, and then, see, look at the distance. And see, I'm halfway in between in time. I never changed that, never moved that, never did anything. And look, I adjusted my spacing. And if we go just to linear, even just through that, just so you can see it, it's not going to be great animation by any means. But watch how it'll go slow, fast, slow, fast, slow, fast. And I can even make that adjustment a little bit more. I needed to go slower and faster. I think I have it on step. It worked. Slow, fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, slow, fast. All right, and if I want that here too, remember I want to do an arc. So there we go, there's an arc now. Now I normally work in step mode, but I just wanted to show you how this works because you can see it's linear. So like to make it a little bit more realistic, you can say auto tangent. So now you can see, look at that, just by adjusting one key. One key. Okay, so I adjusted my arc and I adjusted my spacing. Very simple. All right. Now, this is like, okay, Mike, that's great. This is a sphere. You know, really great. That's awesome. We're animating characters. Can we do something more complicated? Okay, I see your bluff. And let's bring up a shot. So now this shot is something that I use this quite a bit in Animflow. That I use this shot from beginning planning all the way to finished animation. And I'm not going to play the audio for it, just because it might echo or something like that too. But I want to show you that it can be a complex character. So this is Morpheus. We've been given permission to use Morpheus for Animflow. And so let me make some little adjustments here. Like there. And so now you can see, let's look at how many keys I have in here. I've got you can see there's quite a few keys. Now if I just kind of scrub through this or just kind of go through all my keys like that. This phase, by the way, right here is just keyframes, my main storytelling poses, my main blocking, and anticipation. That's it. But as you can see, when I go through it, look at all these there's little moves in here. And remember, I have an anticipation before every move, for every little head thing, every little head movement. And I did that on purpose to do it in this shot because the anticipations are so much easier to see in a wide shot, and they're so hard to see in a subtle shot. But you put them in there, they're still there. All right? So I'm going to go between one little section right here, and I'm going to make a breakdown. So I'm going to do exactly what we did abstractly, but I'm going to do this between some keys. Let me give you a couple keys on the side. So I've got a key pose, got a keyframe right here, which was from my blocking. Then I have my anticipation, and then my next key pose. Now here's the coolest thing is that, let me add one more thing about anticipation, is that an anticipation for the next key, which is here, can also be a follow-through of the key before it. So watch this. Keyframe from blocking, anticipation, keyframe from blocking, but now watch this. This next one's going to be an anticipation to before my next key, but it's also a follow-through. It's also a follow-through from the key before it, but it's an anticipation into this. So here's my key, right? So what I wanted to show is how I go from my anticipation to my breakdown. And I also like, or to my main key. I also like this because there's only 5 frames that I'm going to go through. Like, wow. You know, look, if I made this in the splines, it would probably look okay, but it's not going to look great. You know, so I want to add, I'm an animator, I have to do that. I have to add it. So I've got 5 frames here, and so let's go, it's either 2 or 3 frames. Let's go 3. All right, so here's what the very first thing that I do. I select everything. Make sure it's all selected. Let's do it so we can see it. Selected everything in the face, everything like that. Let's go to tween key, and just to make it simple, let's say 50%. Just make it easy. All right, so now I have keyframe. I got my keyframe, my anticipation, and then my breakdown, which is halfway in space and time, and then my next key. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to do something, since I'm into my character, something that I didn't talk about in the abstract, but it's speeds. Speeds is very important. I had the guy that taught me basically how to animate. Well, first it was the illusion of life is really because I taught myself. But this guy really gave me a lot of other things to think about because he was a traditional animator. And he had emphysema and smoked, which was bad, which I don't think you should do. But he had a really voice like this guy right here. And he told me one time, and he sounded just like Burgess Meredith, who was Rocky's trainer. And if you remember in, I think it was Rocky 1, well, Rocky, when he was chasing the rooster, and when he finally caught it, and Mickey goes, "I got speed," like that. That's exactly what this guy did to me. He's like, "That's why you need speed. You need speeds." I had no idea what he was talking about. But what speeds are is when you go from one key to the next, the worst thing you can do is have everything happen at the same speed, right? Because my body might get there before the rest of me. You know, like that. You know, that's a little bit of an overlap, right? But I like to think of that as speeds first. You know, you can say it's overlap and drag, but I like to look at overlap and drag as smaller bits. And so with speeds, I'm saying my body's going to get there a little bit before my shoulder, before my arm, before this. And so it's going to get there where my arm is then going to get like that, and I add some drag to my hand and all that kind of stuff. So I'm first looking at speeds. All right, so to go back into Maya, and you'll see speeds really quickly here, is I want my body to get there before the rest of this. So this is going to be really cool. So here's what I can do. Now, normally in Tween Machine, you could add groups and manage sets. For some reason, the little pop-up is not working. I have to reinstall it. And so you could basically go in here and say left arm, body, right arm, head, face. You can give it its own. And if you have character sets already built in, you can use character sets. You can import them, you know, right through here. So like if I added a character group, and like right here, see, this is where it would be under here, under the character set. All right. but I don't. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way, and I'm going to go in and I'm just going to select my body. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to say, all right, so here's the things that I added keyframes to. So I'm shifting select, just these things. That's all that I did. All right, make sure I got it. Yep. So what I want to do, go back to my camera view. I do everything in my camera view. I want my body, now if I'm already at my in-between, I'm at my breakdown, at my main breakdown, I'm going to say I want my body to get almost all the way there. So see what it did? Now watch this. Watch when I go through these frames. And just look at the body. It's going here, and look, the body's almost there. It only has a little bit, see, it only has this distance to go. But the arm has a lot more. So look at that. Right, by just doing that, I haven't even added overlap to my shoulder or my arm or my head or anything with my face. If I just left it at that, it already is different. It already is stronger than just having that in between, because my body got there before the rest of my body, before my head, before my arm, before my hand, everything. Okay, so just by doing that, it got there so much faster. All right, and so I got speeds. Right? So now with this breakdown, remember, now we're thinking of arcs. All right, so if I start thinking of arcs, which was the first thing, and it's like I can't select that from here, so I got to go into my perspective because I'll select it in here. I'll select it, and now I'll say, okay, tween machine, you've done a great job. I don't need you anymore. All right, tween machine and tween key are great to get you in the ballpark. It's just getting you in the ballpark. It's just getting you roughly in the place where you want to as quickly as possible. It's not going to finish it for you. All right? So now I start thinking of arcs. All right? So I got my arm here. How do I want that to work to here? Okay, that almost works, but let's play with this a little bit. All right, let's play with this a little bit. Maybe I want my arm out like this. And so now, just by doing that, got a little bit of an arc there. I could maybe even bring this hand up just a little bit. So now look at that arc. And remember, this is how I watch arcs. Let's go fast. I can see that. I can see maybe I need a little bit more. Or maybe I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't like it that way. I don't like it that way. Let's do it the other way. Let's do it down a little bit. Let's do it down. Maybe I do it like that. But now you can also see, look what's great here. This isn't a great in-between though, but it's the elbow is definitely leading the arm, that's for sure. But now when I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's pretty awful. You know, so I don't really like that. You know, so let's just keep going up here. Right? And maybe that arm does come up just a little bit. So I like that way better. Oops. I don't want to do all axes, just one. Okay? But now I start thinking of other things like the hand. Okay, what is the hand doing? And watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip between these keys. I'm going to say, okay, what about drag? What about arcs? That arc doesn't look that great with my hand. So let's make it a little bit better. Let's make it a little bit better. Right? And what I also did here, look, I added some drag when I did that. That's kind of nice. All I was doing was looking at arc, but I ended up giving me some drag too. Okay? So now I can also go in here and do little things like change where the thumbs are. Maybe I'm going to add a little bit of drag for my fingers. Okay? Because I'm also looking at the arc on that, how I'm getting from one key to the next. Okay, and I know that I want to get my fingers more like this because that's where they're coming from and they feel like they open up a little bit. So now I'm adding some drag there too. Drag and overlap are basically the same thing. Okay? So now look at that, how easily I got that. Now I have to go back and say, well, okay, that looks great. Let's go to the head. What's going on with the head? So maybe on this one, I want to have a little bit of a drag on his head. And remember, I'm also looking at arcs, Where's my nose? Maybe on this one, let's rotate down a little bit so I can get a little bit of, see now look at that arc. So I'm looking at that. But then I'm also going to now look at little things like this. What about my eyes? What about my eyes? How about if I'm going to do with speeds, what if I got my eyes there before everything else? Look at that. So all I did was select my eyes and got Tween Machine and dropped it all the way. It's already there. Now check this out. So now keyframe, anticipation, breakdown, look at the difference. And now look, his eyes are just about there. Look at that. Now even if I need to make an adjustment, Tween Machine, thank you very much. It's not exactly what I want to do. Let's move his eyes up even more to the right. Now look at that. I can do the same thing with my brows. So I start to move the brows up. Remember, I'm going to move everything. Look at that. Look how easy I made that in between. And it's all and how easy I made that animation just by going through those few steps. All right. Now, is there any questions about any of that? A little overwhelming or not? Any questions? Let's just come up with any questions for that. As I will tell you while I'm waiting for questions is if you look at that now that keyframe, what I did, that's going to look pretty similar if I just go to spline, because look, I had here 3 frames, 2 frames. Right? Now, for me as an animator, I want to do more. I want to, you know, I don't like to. I think what I look to look at is for my next step is, do I trust the computer? And I don't think so. I would add another in between from here to here. I would play with it because I want to make sure that that body really starts to turn, really starts to get that head there before this, and then I'd probably add another in between here and here because. I would want something like this. So say I want another in between here. Computer's going to put it right there. But say that I want this arm to be way overlapped. And then I even want to play with the fingers a little bit more. You know, I want to curl the fingers just a little bit more. Right through here, and I'm rushing through this just so you can get a good idea. So you can just see, look, that kind of opens it up, right? It's still an ugly pose because I should do, see, I'm a shiny object. I gotta fix the pinky too. It's not great, but you can get the idea. And you can see how I'm going from this to there. And now if I just go through those frames, look at that. And maybe even right here is not a great in-between for my arcs. Maybe it needs to come down here. Look at that. Maybe even something with the head. So I'm constantly looking through that. But I tell you what, obviously between 87, 88, and 89, it's going to look exactly the same because I've got a keyframe in every frame. Yeah, see, there we go. That's funny. That's funny that I actually put that in there. How do you break down that area that has 3 frames? There we go. You know, now the first part, like if I had to do that, I would say like the first part of that area, I'd go through and I would try to find out, like, first of all, like here's what I would do is let's go and say which side do I add the in-between? All right. So from here to here, what I would do is because he's kind of like the body is already there, I would probably, since between here and here is 3 frames, I might go here and go back 1 frame and do it right here. Okay, so I would go and add my in-between here. And so that way I have basically, it would go 2 frames and then 1 frame, 1 frame, 1 frame, like that. And it would really get that arc going really nicely. Okay. So that's kind of what I would do there. All right. All right, now I wanted to give you all some sort of a special here too. Um, I do offer this workshop, so it's 8 weeks and it's very intense. It's um, we basically, the way that I like to look at it is, and I don't think any other school does this, is I really hit the brakes and say, wait a minute, let's go through each step. I mean, you see how we went through that. Like I said, I've gone through 1 week of just anticipations. That's all we talk about is just anticipations. And we go through, and so you have your blocking, you go through your entire part of just anticipations. Then this week, what we're doing right now is just your main breakdowns. And you get to see how your shot's coming together. But what this workshop also does is you get a couple things. There's lectures every week that are video lectures that are already done, and they're not hour-long either. I know, like, if I have to watch this, like, I can't make it through it, even though I love animation. Mine are anywhere from 8 minutes to 12 minutes long, and they're full of information for what we're doing that week. We break down some film. We get into acting. We get into why the character acts that way first. Then we get into planning. I have a storyboard artist that comes in and talks and shows how to do really quick drawings, because I can't draw very well. But you can see what planning to do. And then we get into blocking and what all that entails. And then you see we do the anticipations. We do this part with the breakdowns. And then we even take one more step with in-betweens. Then the next thing we do is polish. And what I hear from so many people, which is so weird to me, is I usually spend a lot of time on polish. Why? Why? If you put all that work into the face, into the blocking, and then you see what happens. You saw what happens when I did Twinkie. There wasn't much to do with the mouth, really. There was a little thing to do for the brows. But since I made my first blocking poses really strong, I put all the work in early. So when I'm adding my in-betweens, I'm making slight adjustments. I'm polishing as I go. So when I get to polish, when I hit spline, first it's like, if I have so many in-betweens, it's going to look pretty darn similar. So well, I can go into that too. The schedule for the week is, so when we go into polish, I like to look at polish as really polish, is to make it a little bit better, and then add secondary on top of that. We do stuff like head shakes and head nods and blinks and darts and lip sync. We don't do lip sync until the very, very end. I've seen so many shots in blocking where they look like this. Hey, but I wonder if we should go over that way, and then I have no idea, but I think it's something that we should. You see the mouth moving, and they're swimming through, and I'm like, oh my goodness, how confusing is that? So we don't do our lip sync until the very end, and I got to tell you, you're going to still do mouth shapes as you're going through, because if a character, you see, and what my character is doing, he's gone like this, and he says E, so I put that in the face, or ooh, it's in the face. I don't think of phonemes. I think of the sound of what's happening on that frame, so I can make some. And Adam, that's exactly right. The more you're in control of it. I used to direct actors too. I've done some live action spots and even like directing them for our shows. For animation, and a lot of celebrities actually too. And I always thought that they have a kind of a hard job, but really we have a harder job. Because when they think of surprise, they just read it and say, oh my! For us, we got to think, okay, surprise means the eyebrows go up, these lids come down a little bit, my eye has to dart a little bit, what am I doing with the corner of my mouth? My shoulders come back. We have to think of all that and make the performance work. So we have to do all that kind of stuff. And so if you do that more early on and let the computer do less of it, you're going to have better animation. All right. Now, what the workshop does is, so we've got those lectures. what you do from day one until day, what's 8 times 7, 56, I guess, 2 months, you do a shot. Now you can do a 2-character shot, you can do a 1-character shot. It's right around 200 to 300 frames, up to you. We build it the whole time. You get a critique from me every week, and it's anywhere from, yeah, thank you. And it's anywhere from sometimes a 4-minute critique to a 12-minute critique. Because how many critiques have you gotten from someone and they go like this? And they're watching it for a long time, before they give notes. Well, I just had to do a critique. Where's my paper now? I just did a critique today, yeah, or yesterday. I wrote it down first. Here's all the stuff I'm going to note. I wrote it down first. Here's everything. And then I talk to you. Then I tell you what it is. But what's cool about what we do is we have that one critique that's recorded, but then we also have a group critique, which actually I'm going to have in about an hour, where we as a class for a half an hour, that's it, we look at 2 people's shot and we critique it. So it's just like if you've ever gone to art school and you pin up your art and everyone can kind of give their opinion on it. But I stay focused. Like tonight, we're only looking at anticipation. Because what I want is the more that you can look at other animation and critique it, the better your eye's going to be. So in other words, I'm speeding up your experience. Because like with experience, it's just like, okay, I'm just going to do a shot. Now I'm getting better because I did another shot. I'm speeding up your experience, your how often you've done animation, because you're sharpening your eye. Because I'm making you give notes. So that really helps. So we do that. And then we also have one other meetup. So we meet twice a week. Because I'll have something like just like what we just did. Go through that. And it's interactive. There's a lot more questions. Like that. It's actually through a regular Google Hangout where we can talk a lot easier. This is set up because there's more people than a regular Google Hangout can handle. And so that's kind of it. So we do that for 8 weeks. Now the thing is also, some people say, well, how much time does that take? Because I break it down in such bite-sized portions, there's not that much work to do. And I try to show you that you could really, if you understood it, you could do like all your anticipations for a 300 frame shot. You could really do it in 4 hours. However, since we're learning it and we're going slow, I like to say we have a week. So take your time. It's more important for me that you understand it. You understand it. And so if you can't get this happens with a couple people right now, that because I know you got a day job or you're doing something else and life interrupts, that deadline of having it done on a Friday, I'm sorry, you're going to have deadlines the rest of your life. I would rather you learn it. Okay, so if you can't get it done at Sunday by midnight, takes you to Wednesday, I'm totally cool with it. Totally cool with it. I want you to learn. Oh yeah. Here's what I'm doing though is it's going to be offered like every 2 months, okay? Because it's an 8-week term, and so if you need to just figure out kind of where that might work, and I might even have like one that is specifically in between that. I might look at doing that specifically for like if Animation Mentor is getting out at a certain time, I'll say let me plug it in right there so you can actually do this and then go right back into AM, because I think AM's great. I love the people there. I love Sean and Bobby and Carlos. I love those guys. You could. I have someone right now that is doing Class 5 and my class. And what's great for them is they're getting 2 shots. They're getting 2 shots at the same time. And now with the 8-week too, what you'll be able to do, since AM is 12 weeks, is you'll be able to take whatever we're learning and putting into that. And so now you're getting 2 shots, man. So that's pretty cool. So, and if you saw too, the course, because now also since you guys have gone to this, there's a code there that if you can see that code, right at that price code, that waives the $50, and right now for another week it's still $100 off, so it's $7.99. It's $100 a week. What school does that? I went through and I looked, I'm like, why are people charging so much? That's ridiculous. So that's what I got going on for that. So that would be cool. Yeah. It would be nice to have the practice. Yeah, especially before, I had someone this morning ask me when would be the best time to take it. And I would say either before class 3 or after class 3. Because that way you understand workflow, and then you can go right into class 4, and man, you got that acting shot nailed. And then you go into class 5, and you got a two-person shot. Oh, that's awesome. So that's where I would kind of do. If you're still in 4, then definitely between 4 and 5. And then also you have time to kind of practice that, and then your 5 shot is going to look awesome. Because when I taught 3 and 4, and I actually didn't really follow the curriculum, and plus I didn't like the collaboration thing because, look, I've hired animators before. I'm a director too. Most of us, 95% of us, can get along. We don't have to take a course on how to get along, how to work together. You're going to learn that when you're there. I would much rather have an animator that understands how to get a shot from beginning to end instead of, well, he really works well with others, but his animation is horrible. I will hire someone that says, well, his animation is great, and we have no idea if he gets along with others. Chances are, we all do. We all like the same stuff. We all think Star Wars is the best movie ever, or was Star Wars, Star Trek, anything like that. We all have action figures / dolls. We all do that, So I'm telling you what, that's, I think that part isn't really needed. Oh yeah. Well, if you want, it might be better to just figure out what time works better for you. And oh, by the way, if you're not friends with me on Facebook, please do, and just contact me. I'm very active on Facebook, and let me bring that up just in case. So here's my thing. And so I'm very active on Facebook, so friend me if you're not a friend with me, or just all, just you can follow it through there, because I'm very active on there. All right. So, all right. If there's any questions, I'm always available, so that you definitely go to that, friend me like that, and just ping me. Send me a message on there. And I also offer a service where, let me bring that up too, if you need it, because it's something that's a little bit different. It's basically critiques. So you can, if maybe you're like, I don't know if I want to do the whole workflow kind of thing, there's also, I offer critiques. And what the critique is like this. There's 2 of them. There's one where it's just 1 session, and that's $50, but there's another one at $75 that you get 2, and you know what I've been doing? I do more than 2, because you show me your shot, I'll look at it, write down my notes, like that, and then we have a one-on-one hangout. It usually lasts about a half an hour. So we'll talk about the shot. We'll say, okay, here's what I think you should do. I'm doing that with someone right now where his shot was almost finished. And I said, do you want an honest assessment? Let's go back to blocking. And so we went back to blocking, and his shot looks a ton better right now. So I mean, if you saw where it was and where it is now, it's like we started back from scratch. And so we've met 2 times to get that even better. And let me bring that up where that can be. So if you want to do something like that, it's a little bit smaller, and so that can help you with your individual shot, But I'll tell you, yeah, with the pantomime shot is always tough. I think the hardest thing with the pantomime shot is coming up with something. What I always did with my students, and you'll see, even in what we do at the very beginning of Animflow, is we invent the character. And I think that's the most important thing, is trying to figure out who the character is. I go through a whole list of how you get into the character, because the more that you understand your character, the better performance you're going to have. Oh yeah, I do. I draw over it. Yep, I've got everything that's like that. I don't have an onion skin like they do, which is really great. But I draw over the drawings too. We do it when we're in class. We draw over it in class also. So it's almost exactly like that, except we're going to learn workflow, and your shot will get better. So the way I look at it is that you get 2 things. You get a really great shot. I mean, and also I'll give you guys a link too of the current students. There's 2. So you can see kind of where they are right now, because I try to update it as much as I can. And so let me put that up there. This is where the current students are right now. I update it like every time that we do something different and they upload it. And then this is the for the critiques. So you can go and check that out. Reshot your reference today. Yeah. And that's what happens. I mean, and see, the biggest thing that I say with planning is that I want you to plan it so well that you could give your planning to somebody else. Because here's what that does. That means you've explored everything. Because look where you are right now. I bet you what you're having right now is you went through, you set up, you did your reference, you did your planning, you might have even done your blocking, and heaven forbid you did blocking plus, and then you say, oh, I hate this, or oh, I got a better idea. Oof, man, that's rough. You know, and now all that time that you spent, and I understand it because I've been there. You know, so I know it's like, oh, you start getting, oh, what do I do now? You know, so don't make that mistake again. All right, buddy. So like I said, reach out to me whenever. I'm very, very social. As you can see, I'm not very shy. You know, so and if you have any questions, you know, please yell at me. All right, so everybody, so thank you very much for joining this. I'm going to be doing another one, I think, in like 3 weeks about polish, because what I go through with polish is I go through a hit list, a checklist of what we do, and there's a couple of things that we do as animators that really hurt our polish. And I will tell you, if you can do these 2 steps that I do, if you can do this, man, you're going to get to a finished product even faster, and you're also going to get a better performance too. Oh, acting wasn't natural. Yeah, so if you would have gotten into the character, if you would have known exactly who that character is, like is the character sleepy and angry, you know, something like that, you'll get a different performance than someone who is sad and lonely. You know, so and that's just by 2. You know, we do a lot more, you know, so than that. All right, so everybody, all right, have a great night, evening, day, wherever you are, and hopefully we'll meet again. This is a small business, and we'll run across each other again. All right, cool. All right, I will see you all later. All right, take care. See you.